Welcome back to Faith Fondue, a podcast featuring author and speaker Haley DeMaria and teacher and blogger Ann Strickers. Faith Fondue will feature a melting pot of topics, ignited by a flame, our faith, and guided by the Holy Spirit. It's the week of August 29th, the 21st week in Ordinary Time, and we are back after a month-long unplanned hiatus. Ann, good to see you. It is so good to be back.
Hi, Haley. Great to see you as well. I like how you mentioned welcome back and our unplanned hiatus. We'll talk a lot about what happened during that month today. We will also talk in our spiritual stew about what happens each week at the U.S. Naval Academy at the end, kind of a song that's important to you. And I'll talk a little bit about the Nicene Creed and what we believe. So tell me, Haley, August, the last weekend in August used to feel like summer, fill me in.
I know. Yeah, I know. Usually Labor Day is kind of the unofficial end to summer, I guess. But I feel like, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like August is the new September. I guess that's right. August is the new September. So you've been back to work for a month. I took a week off for vacation, but I worked most of the month as well. Our students aren't quite back yet. I know yours are, but boy, even in Arizona, school began the last week of July. So school's kind of creeping in on this last month of summer in most places in the country. So, September being back to school it's time for Halloween in September already. So,
I know. See, we've seen signs of that. And it's funny because I was trying to explain to somebody, a true semester, if you start after September, Haley, and you end at December, the first semester, that is not equal to, the spring where you're January to June. So I think in an effort to kind of equalize that now, it's starting to creep up now, the start date of August 25th, it's moved up to the 20th. And then all of a sudden it's moved up to the 15th and half your August is gone. And part of me resists. Well, of course I resist because as a teacher, I love summer, but I just feel like now I'm like, let's just bring in fall. I'm ready. Summer's over. So might as well just bring in the pumpkins and bring in the PSL as we discussed personally, the pumpkin spice latte.
Yeah, well, fall for me means Halloween and candy corn. I am a huge candy corn lover, and I have seen it in the stores already, which this is really early for candy corn. And I will not buy it until October 1st. So,
oh, really? Because hard line?
Oh, yeah. If it's in my house, I'll eat it. So
okay.
A month of eating candy corn is about all my body can take.
The pure sugar.
Oh, so
it's funny, good. Yeah, because I too love candy corn, and I remember that you love it, and I think that was one of the first things where I'm like, no, that she really is a kindred spirit. Like she really loves candy corn too.
Oh, yes,
but I thought of you because I did see it, and then there's the pumpkins in the Brock's candy mix.
Yeah, not as good.
No?
Okay. Nope. And I know people think it all tastes the same, but that little white part at the bottom tastes different. I don't know. Well, we can have a semester.
Bottom at the top.
No, the white part is at the bottom. Oh, you think that's the top?
Oh, yeah.
Depends on, interesting.
Triangle, right.
Okay. Oh, well, that's
isosceles triangle that is candy corn, right?
That's a good debate. Is the white at the top or the bottom?
Who knew? We could dedicate an episode to candy corn.
Oh, for sure.
And then the brown, the one with the brown and the orange and the white.
Nope, negative. I'll eat that, but I'll bite the rest of it off and throw the brown part out. But that's
here. Agreed. Okay, well we're back to friends.
I know. Okay. So we'll leave candy corn for the fall, but I feel like we are in fall. It's interesting on the East Coast here. Maryland just adopted this. Delaware's had it for a long time. Schools are mandated to start after Labor Day.
Really?
Public schools, they are, because it's such a huge economic boost to the Delaware beaches, to Ocean City, Maryland. If people are back in school, they're not going on vacation, and it's just a huge time for the economics and the beach economy.
I can see that.
Yeah, so Maryland adopted that, which is one of the reasons I think we have started a little later. But yeah, Delaware and Maryland schools don't go back until, well, Tuesday, September 7th, which is also Rosh Hashanah. So
Oh,
this
wow.
this year they're starting Wednesday, September 8th, which seems
Okay.
very late, but
Yes.
everything's a
Yeah.
little wacky about the school year this year. I'm sure we will talk about that all fall.
Hmm.
So it's been an interesting month. I did have a nice week-long vacation with my family, which was so nice and so needed. As we
Good.
know, Edward was gone for 2 months this summer, so it was so great to have him back
Yeah.
after working at camp. And then James left last week for his first semester of his sophomore year in college. So we had just a couple weeks in between where we were all home and got away for a week, just the four of us, which is really nice. It's as they get older, it's less and less time that just the four of us are together. And as I said to my kids, we're not going to be a family of four forever. Most likely,
Yeah. Right.
we'll be slowly
Yeah.
adding others to our little family. So
True.
we treasure
Yeah.
we treasure that family of four time, which was really nice. And then we came back to, that Greek letter that, as I mentioned earlier, we all wish would stay on a frat
Yeah.
house, or,
Yeah.
for those of us of a certain age who watched Saturday Night Live probably 3 decades ago, the
Oh my goodness.
Delta, Delta, Delta,
Yeah.
can I help you, help you, help you? Well, Delta, you can help me by going away.
Yeah.
So I think it's been an interesting month just with getting back to work, vacation, which was great, dealing with some health issues, which are, always present.
Mm.
And then, this Delta
Yeah.
variant. I felt like we all had a normal summer and now we're kind of going back into COVID mode, and it's not making anybody very happy.
No. Right. We remain divided. It is challenging. And yeah, people are just operating from fear. And, our faith asks us to be not afraid. And yet, fear is so real for people. So it's interesting how people kind of work through their concerns and whatnot. So, yeah, I wish we were having a different conversation, Haley. But that being said, we are back as well at school, full 1,700 students. And in the first day of class, it was like, here we go again. And it was great to have a full classroom. It was also great to be reminded of what teenagers are like in the good and the, idiosyncratic ways. For example, kid walks in totally late, very confident, very brazen, walks to his seat and hands me the tardy slip. And then kids think that's funny. And then I just, out of nowhere, it's sports and spirituality class. I said, did you know in the NFL, if you're late for a meeting, you're fined? And I said, what do you think of that? That you would be fined if you're late for a class or late for a meeting? And it was like, people didn't know what to do with that. It's just a fun way to interact with kids. Like,
I
they're going to
love
do
that.
that, and I'm going to give them something as well. And one kid tried to almost walk over his desk because he was trying to figure out where his seat was. And we have to have seating charts. Obviously, part of that is COVID related, because if there is an outbreak, you have to contact trace. So we have to submit a seating chart. And in the moment he tried to kind of step over the desk, I was like, I need you to walk around. And so part of it's annoying, but part of it is he's a 17-year-old boy, and that's kind of what they do. So we're back, And with that, we have a lot of kids on campus. It's full, attendance. We haven't had that since March of,
2020. Yeah.
2020. And then not only that, there's more traffic. So everything's just taking longer. So I coach a girls golf team and transport the girls, and it's been hot, and our air quality also hasn't been great. So it's just a lot of factors that kind of are weighing on us, not in bad ways, because we are really glad to be together, but it's just, people carry a lot. We're carrying a lot. So there's an energy and an enthusiasm, but there's also, the reality of 2021.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In the beginning of the school year is like that anyway. It's chaotic, it's stressful. For a lot of these kids and teachers too, they haven't been waking up early. So it's an adjustment
Sure.
to even
Right.
just getting back on a schedule.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's going to be an interesting week in our school as we start this week too. We have 84 new families, and I think we're at 112 new students. So that's a lot more cars to add to our car line. That's a lot more
Yep.
bodies in the building. That's a lot more cars in our parking lot. Yeah, it's going to be an adjustment to just
Mm.
be back. Now, we were back full time all year last year, so we have had a
Okay.
full student building, but
Yeah.
we have 100 more kids in the building this year.
Yeah.
It's going to
Yeah.
feel different. But still, it's exciting. I think, just having the teachers back this past week, there was a level of energy that was really fun to see. We teach little kids. I know you're at a high school. I'm at a 2s through 8th grade school. And the little ones are just, they bring I don't even, it's almost like a naive joy.
Yeah.
They don't carry the weight of the world like we all do, and
Yeah.
perhaps even your high schoolers do.
Yeah.
They're just happy and joyful, and they're so excited to see their teachers and their friends. And so we're super psyched to have the kids come back because they're just happy, which is great.
That's
So
great.
I think one of our jobs as adults who are around younger kids like that is to let them be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, they're wearing a mask. Nobody wants to wear a mask. Nobody wants to wear. There's no one who wants to wear one. I
Yeah.
will, and I do want to keep everyone safe. But do I wish Delta wasn't here and COVID didn't exist? Of course. But the kids don't feel that way. They don't have all of these crazy emotions that we do. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that sort of unbridled joy that the kids will bring to the
Yeah.
building.
So, Haley, I have a question. I appreciate that you said that so loudly and clearly because I feel the same way. Do you think people say that enough? How much they don't enjoy wearing a mask? So I'm at mass, we have to wear one. And the tension in my classroom is kids pull it down beneath their nose.
Totally.
It's hard.
That's a
Class all
teenage thing.
day. No, I'm with them. I totally
Mm.
in mass today, I'm sitting by no one. I pull it down because I want to breathe. My gym is requiring it as well. We're back to that. We have to submit a vaccination card. And so I may have talked about this in June. We, didn't have to wear masks. So I returned to the gym. And then I just said, okay, I can't stop doing this. So when they put the mask mandate back on, I was committed to going. But I don't not like working out with a mask on indoors. I have to do it, even though everybody in the building's vaccinated. I get it. So I pull it down beneath my nose too. But my question is, so maybe I'm a teenager. I probably could make an argument for that. But do you think that conversation is out there enough? I mean, is that a different approach towards getting people to get vaccinated?
I think people are afraid to have that conversation. I mean, I fully support the mask mandates, especially in the school where I am. I am not an anti-mask person.
No, and please don't take it that
And
way.
I don't. And I think, but I think if I say I hate wearing a mask, people take those words as I hate the fact that we have to wear a mask. Well, of course we all hate it. I gladly wear it. I actually wear it in places it's not mandated. We actually don't have a mask mandate in Anne Arundel County where I live. There isn't one in Baltimore County, which is where my kids go to school. So they do have a mask mandate there. We don't, but I still choose to wear one going into the grocery store, or it's not that hard. But I hate wearing it. But I think if you say that, people think you're an anti-mask wearer.
Got it. Yeah.
And,
Right.
unfortunately, and we're not going to go here, of course, because our podcast is Switzerland, as we've always said, like the fondue cheese in the pot.
Yes,
We
Swiss
are
cheese.
neutral.
Uh-huh.
But for better or worse, this whole thing has become very, very politicized. And
Yeah.
so for me to say I hate wearing a mask, most people are going to hear that with a political connotation. And I actually
Okay.
say that from no standpoint, except for, who wants
Yeah.
to wear one? And working out, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
So-
I appreciate that because I've said it in class because it's very hard to teach with a mask in the sense of, I say this to my students, like literally, not hopefully metaphorically. I have a big mouth. I have a big smile. I like to smile. I am somebody who reacts, and to have limited, I smile through my eyes a little bit, but like to not have students see that to me is like, I want them to know I care, I laugh, like I am leaning in to like give them, feedback. So I don't like wearing the mask because it's, again, I have to be more vocal. I can't hear a lot of kids.
For
Other kids
sure.
can't hear them. And I guess I say it because I want us, I'm hopeful that we can turn the tide on this so that we don't have to wear the mask in the future. So I appreciate what you're saying, because I say it from a place of like, let's together get there so we can get rid of this. Like the reality
Yes.
is I don't like the mask, but it's not a political thing. It's this, it's the inhibition. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And when you think about, again, my little kids at my school who are learning to speak and learning to read and
Yeah.
learning to
Yeah.
enunciate, it's a critical part of just those kind of fundamental building blocks for our littlest learners. But yeah, no, nobody likes the mask. We all wear it gladly. Well, we
Yeah.
wear it gladly, but no, none of us like it.
Dutifully. I would say for myself, I wear it dutifully.
Dutifully, yes.
Yeah.
Without,
Not beautifully, dutifully.
that's a good one.
I follow the rules.
Yeah.
Yes. So anyhow, well, yeah,
Well,
there
we're
is a
back to
lot going
school,
on.
back to life a little bit. With fall comes sports, or comes football, but the
Yeah.
return to sports too. So you're kind of doing a double whammy here. You had golf in the spring, and now you're
Yeah.
doing golf in the fall right away
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So, it's girls golf is in the fall. Girls are happy to be back. And I have a really talented crew this year, so that's exciting. And like we got to play a practice round yesterday, and it's been great. So looking forward to that. But we have a lot of girls that came out, and I really believe in golf, and I think it's a great game. So I'm glad they're out, and other sports are in full force. However, like for example, our football team was supposed to play Central Catholic in Modesto, and they drove there, and then the air quality did not allow them to play. So that non-league match was canceled, and they were going to try to have it on Saturday, but again, the air quality prevented that. So, I know schools in Reno that their air quality has been over 600. They haven't had sports in weeks. So again, something that we're not taking for granted. So we have that, but we also have, this time of year is exciting because there are so many sports going on. We have, in MLB, this is always just an exciting time because teams that are on the verge of the playoffs, making a run to get in, like the New York Yankees are hot right now. Atlanta's really hot, but the hottest team in baseball is my team, the San Francisco Giants. And I'll talk a little bit about baseball on the Spiritual Stew. So it's been awesome because nobody predicted this. The big prediction was the LA Dodgers because they have so much talent. But they're doing something right here in San Francisco, and it's really interesting. So that's exciting. And then, it's a fun time of year because college football starts to take off, and then we have the NFL. And I don't know if you ever watch Hard Knocks, Haley, but it's the Dallas Cowboys. They basically follow an NFL team.
Okay.
And I've enjoyed it the last few years. Last year was the Rams and the Chargers, but it was a really interesting year because they were navigating everything with COVID, right? And no fans and whatnot. This year's different. But I'm just not a Dallas Cowboys fan. So I'm not enjoying it like I had in prior years.
Interesting. It's interesting how a team
Yeah.
can make a difference like that.
Right. And the
Yeah.
leadership. I mean, really, to
Yeah.
me, I'm not a fan of the head coach. I'm not a fan of the owner, Jerry Jones. It's an interesting, like, kind of deep dive into a culture. So for those people who are kind of interested in something like that or pro football, it's fun to watch in that way, just to kind of observe. But yeah,
Maybe when you watch it, you'll find things that you want to learn to not do. There's
yes,
always
as a
things
coach.
there's always things to learn. But yeah, yesterday was kind of a fun day for me because we watched College Game Day in the morning, which just feels like fall and familiar and makes me happy to
Sure.
see it. And then, of course, my Ravens played their last preseason game last night.
Okay.
It was the first one I was actually able to watch. It's preseason, so what does it mean? Well, it means you lose one of your
Right.
starting running backs when he hurts his MCL and is now out for the season. So that's not fun. But it's the Ravens just won their 20th straight preseason game. I don't
Okay.
know why that
Okay.
means anything to anybody except
Yeah, but to the
it's
diehard fans,
it's
it
a new
does.
record. Yeah. So in all of the NFL, they were
Oh,
tied.
really?
Yeah, they
Okay.
were tied with the Green Bay Packers at 19, and then won last night to have
Huh.
the longest preseason winning streak. Why we even keep track of that, I don't know. But it makes
Fans
you
keep track
excited
of
for the
everything.
season. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, keeping track of speaking of keeping track of things, I didn't mention this. My brother got married in August, first week in August, so we were able to go to his wedding, and it was great. The next day after his wedding, he was moving out of his apartment where he moved in with his wife. And so we were packing things up and books, and he's a huge reader, but he tracks when he starts a book and when he finishes it.
Oh,
And I thought
interesting.
that was super interesting because, and he has found that he reads even more, which I thought was very interesting. So yeah, I don't, I really don't know one area of life where tracking, it's a discipline. I don't know if I'd make the argument it's a spiritual discipline, but it might be when people track their money, when they track, like a friend of mine is very involved in Weight Watchers, and it's about tracking what you eat.
Hmm.
And that is what helps her succeed. So there's no doubt about it. Tracking helps us to reach our goals. So I thought that was really interesting. Maybe that's a
Yeah.
tip or a hack for our listeners to, when you start a book, when do you finish it?
Yeah.
And that'd be
Interesting.
interesting maybe in the new year. Isn't it cool? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
I
like
do,
that.
for example, I do 21 minutes of reading every morning. I have kept that. I think I've talked about it before,
Hmm.
21 in 2021, and I've loved it. And I do read, I finish books way faster. Now I'm somebody who in the past has been in the middle of like 8 books. So now I'm finally like trying to finish up those missing parts if I deem it worthy of, Gretchen Rubin, who has a podcast, says don't finish every book that you read if you don't. She's not of the mindset if it's not your thing, then don't finish it. But there's certain ones where I'm like, no, I need to finish it. So I also need to track it.
Yeah. Now, are you a non-finisher book? Do you not finish books? Have you ever not finished a book you started?
Oh, I could probably pull out like 7 books over at my nightstand. So, for example, Black Domers is the collection of essays through the
Yep.
decades of Notre Dame alumni who are Black Americans. I can't even believe it is so good. It is challenging. It's inspiring. It's real. It's authentic. I've enjoyed every profile. So that's an easy one to pick up and put down. But that would be an example where I started it because we
Ah,
had the shared read, but I didn't finish it. So I'm about to finish it. About 3 years ago, I started Malcolm X's autobiography, and it's hard. It's challenging. He's very direct and blunt, which is good. I mean, again, it's a different um, philosophy than my own, but I'm halfway through that one. I don't know that I'll finish it. It's very long, so
so
you're
maybe,
not obviously.
yeah. So maybe that's my. I mean, I listen to most books. I very rarely am
Oh, right,
actually
we talk.
reading a hard copy. And maybe I just maybe I don't think I've ever not finished a book. However, I'm not sure I've ever picked one up that was too long for me to read. I guess I'm really picky about the books that I read, but um,
Yeah,
that's interesting. But I know a number of people who just, if it doesn't capture them in the first several chapters, they just put it down. And I've
yeah,
always found that
they,
fascinating.
yeah. They say if you want to read more, they say do that because why slog through something?
I agree with that, actually. If it doesn't capture you, then why keep reading it? But so,
It's out there. Then it's
yeah.
like in your psyche, I guess. Then the journal in that way would crush me because it would be like, whoa, I started this 3 years ago, so maybe I would finish
Right.
it. Yeah,
Right. Interesting.
yeah.
That would be interesting if you wrote it down that
That's gonna
way.
be on my takeaway. Maybe I'll create my my book log. It'd be
Okay.
fun, it'd be fun to think of what I've read this year. So, and then there's the whole journals and, magazines too that interrupt all the other reading, but
So it
just a
is,
hack.
yeah, it's interesting this year. We're getting a little off topic, and that's okay. We can move on to our spiritual stew. But one of the scheduling changes we made at our school this year is we are doing a reading zone. So
Love it.
every day there is a built in 25-minute period for pleasure reading.
Love,
Can't be
love it.
academic, it's for teachers, staff,
Love
students.
it. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I will take a hard
Yes,
copy
are.
book that I read. But yeah, we've never done something like that before, but it's really hard, especially for students, especially for teachers. I would imagine during the school year, they're so busy. Who has time to read for pleasure? Um, so I think it's great
Yeah,
to give the
I
students
agree.
that time too.
It's nourishing for the mind. I mean, it is like physical fitness, right? For your mind.
Yes.
Um, Maybe we need to really reframe how we propose reading to Americans. I am concerned, Haley. I am concerned about critical thinking skills. I've noticed that some of just the arguments that we're trying to contend in class, I'm like, that is like I will have a prompt and I'll have students respond, agree and disagree. And I don't want their opinion. I just say, what are the positives? What are the negatives? And I have been concerned. So, reading, it increases empathy. Reading, gets us outside of ourselves, but it also develops our ability to think critically. So, congrats to St. Anne's. St. Anne's, right?
Yeah,
For
St. Anne's. That's
implementing
interesting.
that in the schedule. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Great. No, that's good to hear. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that from you from a high school
Yeah.
perspective, but it's really interesting. I, of course, was a high school teacher, and my background is secondary education. But the more time I spend in this, these elementary school years, you realize how critical these years are in terms of building just habit, foundational habits and that love of learning that everybody talks about. That's not all of a sudden going to magically happen in high school. Um, it might
Yeah.
for some, it might happen in college for some, but yeah, I think we really have to capture these little guys when
Yeah.
they are still, the massive sponges that they are.
Yeah. Good.
So,
I'm glad. Yeah. I think your perspective is right on. So,
all
yeah.
right. So my spiritual stew is a little different this year or this week, although it feels like it's been a year since we've been on this podcast. So certainly the events in Afghanistan, I'm sure, have been weighing on everyone's hearts, certainly mine, these past several days. But there is a song, we attend Mass at the Naval Academy. They have a Catholic Mass on Sundays for really, it's open to the public. It's primarily for the midshipmen. A lot of midshipmen are there, but there's a lot of the public that's there too. And they sing a hymn at the end. They actually sing it after all church services that they have there, not just Catholic Mass. And
Oh,
um,
nice.
it's not their alma mater, but it's sung at the end of a service and many services. Like Notre Dame, we sing our alma mater at the end of our services when we're on campus. But I'll post a link to the full song. I will read the words from the second verse. And it goes, Eternal Father, grant, we pray, to all Marines, both night and day, the courage, honor, strength, and skill their land to serve thy law fulfill. Be thou the shield forevermore from every peril to the core. So, of course, the Marine Corps is part of the Navy. It's part of the U.S. Navy. I actually didn't know that till I moved to Annapolis. So we have plenty of midshipmen when they come through the Naval Academy. When they're looking at service selection, many of them choose to go Marines. Many of them choose to, take various jobs within the Navy. But we are not a military family. We have, aunts or uncles and cousins who have served in various capacities. But, Jamie and I and our kids aren't active Navy. But we have these midshipmen who have been at our house, for the last 18 years, and we love them and they become part of our family and they are serving in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And, when something like this happens, it's, I usually will send out a text and just say, hey, just checking in, because it's always a few days before names are released. Um, and I don't know these young men and women who were killed recently last week, but I know a lot of kids like them, and I say kids because most of them are young. But I know what these Marines are like, and I know how committed they are to their country and how committed they are to doing what they are asked to do, and they don't question it. Or they don't question the politics behind it.
Mm.
They are there to serve, and they are putting their lives out there every day. And I, again, don't know, our fallen Marines from last week, but I know my Marines, and I would be crushed to think of what their families would be going through, and what these families must be going through. So I love the hymn. It's one of the few songs that makes me very emotional when I hear it. It's
Interesting.
very
Yes.
powerful in song form and not just the words. But I've always loved it. And, we really do need to remember to pray for our servicemen and women all the time, and not just when something like this happens. So the Marines have been on my heart and mind, and that will certainly be part of my takeaway. My
Yeah.
my melting pot is to continue to pray for these servicemen and women,
Yeah.
because they are making the choice every day to put themselves in harm's way, and I don't know how
Yeah.
many people would do that.
Yeah, we kind of talked about calling and yeah, and service, and that's really what these men and women they must have. They feel drawn to serve, and thank God for that. They bear witness to, I think, something very powerful, and I think it's great that they have conviction, and that relates to my piece of the spiritual stew. Um, I want to just talk about the Nicene Creed, because in the Nicene Creed, which is a profession of faith, so it's basically asking you to profess what you believe. And we say this. I say it with conviction. And the opening line, is, "I believe in God, the Father Almighty, Maker of heaven and earth." And just when I'm teaching young people, it's like, this is the core stuff. Like, when we stand behind a creed, this is what you yourself have to say, is this really what, in terms of being a Catholic Christian, do you believe in this? Because I teach an ethics class and moral issues, and many Catholics disagree on some of the moral teachings, but really at the heart of it is what we have in this creed. And starting with just, do you believe in God? Right. And one of the lines is that God is the creator of all things visible and invisible. And I love that, because that line, I use on the first day of class. I believe in things visible and invisible. And I just ask them, do you believe in things that are invisible? And I do. I think, like, the line of St. Francis captures it. I believe it is in giving that we receive. And, I almost like acted out. Like, how is that possible that when I give something, I actually receive something? Like if we were to make it like a math equation, literally, I go from 1 to 0. I have nothing, right? I hold nothing when I give you something, but I've gotten something. So I can't see what I've gotten, right? That's the invisible. Or I know that my parents love me, right? And eventually it shows itself in deeds. But how do I know that? Like, I can't see love, but I feel it and I know it's real. And I just think that's a good question to ask young people. Like, do you believe in things visible and invisible? I mean, especially in today's world where we always want proof, and oh my gosh, the whole science is real thing, there's that piece. But it's like, spirituality, according to Richard McBrien, is about, there's more to life than meets the eye. So there's that part of it. But then there's the second question. I want them to state what they believe in. And, one of the questions I asked is, do you believe in the United States of America? Like, do you believe in what this country, who we are and what we're trying to do? And I think it can be hard. And right now it's hard to believe in the United States of America, because I think we have a moral obligation to help these Afghanis who helped us while we were there. and that we may be leaving behind, whether they're translators or men or women protecting us. We say, we play an interesting role in the world. Do we believe in that? And, not just that, but there's a lot of things like, do you believe in miracles? A lot of young people say, I believe everything happens for a reason. I think that's a starting point, but I think I want to go a little deeper with that. But I use the example of Field of Dreams, because that's really kind of the underlying belief there, because Ray Kinsella hears a voice and then he sees these baseball players, but not everyone can see them. And that's what prompts him to build this baseball field, right? So he has a calling, he has conviction. And it's not necessarily in service, but it kind of is about relationships and healing and whatnot. So I think it's a fun way to think about what we're asked to stand behind.
Yeah, you know what? I'm listening to you say all this, and I'm thinking, what a gift to your students. Hearing you talk, or these times like these when I really miss being in the classroom. It's certainly why I love what I do when I speak and meet with students that way.
Yeah.
But you have such an opportunity to really pause with these students and have them really think about very important issues. And when you think of teenagers, they're busy, they're superficial. Not all of them, but they all are in part, right? That's not all they have, but they are all worried about what they're posting, what they're wearing, what their friends are doing, what they're not being invited to. They got a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
But for you to be able to take them into a classroom and pause and have them really think about just words that they say and they
Yeah.
know, that are very familiar to them, that they've probably said
Yeah.
hundreds of times without really pausing to think. Just what a gift that is, to just kind of have them take a deep breath and
Yeah.
reflect.
Yeah.
We live in a really busy world, and we're all guilty of it. I mean, I certainly
Yeah.
am. And, it's probably why I have been so run down this last month. And,
Yeah.
because we're all
Yeah.
going, but
Yeah. Right.
that time for reflection
Yeah.
is what we should be doing. Certainly during
Yeah.
Mass, there's
Yeah.
times when my mind is elsewhere. But that's a gift and a grace that we have that we really need to be better about utilizing.
Well, and I would imagine most of our listeners, Haley, are people of faith. And, I think that's an argument for me. I mean, that's one of the reasons I, continue to practice my faith, because I need the structure, whether it's the journal where I'm accounting for my, what I've read or what I do, it's every Sunday I can mark, like, am I participating in this? Because I am concerned, and, I'd be interested to hear from other people, like, so many friends that don't practice faith. Okay, so what do you believe? I just don't want people to go through this life and just kind of, what is, I know family is important. Great. But like, beyond our family, like, what do you stand for? What do you stand behind? Like, I mean, I think we all should be asking, do you believe in the United States of America? We're citizens of this place, or do you believe in money? I guess, is that what the belief is? Like, I just want a sense of where people are. So.
Well, and that's a great takeaway for our melting pot. I mean, certainly you and I and our praying friends will be keeping the military and our country and, all of those in harm's way in our prayers this week. But I also think a great takeaway for us this week is to take some time in reflection, as we're saying, any prayers that we have, or even, as we're reciting prayers in Mass or tonight at Vespers, are we really listening to the words? So not just listening, but reflecting and digesting and taking them to heart. I think maybe our challenge and takeaway for this week is to pause, to do what we're asking your students to do, which is reflect, and to reflect ourselves a little bit.
I agree. And I think, maybe in that process, I have found people, young people our age, oftentimes the people we respect the most are people of conviction. Now that could probably be a tricky dance, because some people it's too much. It's kind of like this, delicate balance. But I'd like to think this week, like, who are the people that I look to because they do stand for something, and what is it that they stand for, and how do they live their lives? Because I think they kind of point the way for us. So I will, this week for my takeaway, I'd like to pray for those people and just kind of look to their example of what it is that they have or hold as important. And one of those people is my coworker, Mary. She, for example, she just says out and out, I have the greatest job in the world. I'm a high school religion teacher. And she really means it. And she's going to Lourdes this week. So she has the neurological condition. It's compromised her ability to be mobile in the sense of walking in the way that she once did, or running. So she's talked to her students about pilgrimage and what she's seeking, spirit healing, whether it's spiritual, physical, or, emotional. So I'd like to pray for her, ask everybody to pray for Mary and her mother, who will be going to Lourdes, and all of them, what are they, pilgrims and their malades. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I will keep Mary and her travels in my prayers as well. And all of our listeners, we are super glad to be back. And we look forward to meeting up again with you next week. And have a great week.
Have a great week at school, Haley. And look forward to hearing about the fruit of all that sustained silent reading. So
sounds great.
Okay.